Welcome everybody, Gamer King Tar Heel here, and today we got a review of Guild Wars 2 ArenaNet's new fantasy MMO. Giving an opinion on MMOs can be very difficult. There's such a huge amount of content, and whether that content works depends on such a huge wide variety of factors. Well, we're coming up on the 1 month release of ArenaNet's Guild Wars 2, and I've got 150 hours into all of my characters, and I feel confident rendering a verdict. Let's talk aesthetics. Guild Wars 2 on max settings with a good frame rate is quite possibly one of the best looking games you're going to see on your PC. The textures look sharp, the particle effects pop, and the game looks amazing in 3D if you have a setup. All of that technical know-how would be squat if they actually made a game that was boring to look at. The architecture of Lion's Arch is unmistakable. Divinity's Reach, the main city for the humans, feels like a giant metropolitan city. You ever played another MMO and they talk about our food supply is in danger and you have to go out and protect a farm and there's like one farmhouse and one little field that's supposed to be feeding this whole city? Well, when you step outside Divinity's Reach, there's farmland as far as the eye can see. It makes the game world feel real. It makes it feel like these people have to eat, and there's farmland, a breadbasket for all these people to eat. Guild Wars 2 is a gorgeous looking game, but without gameplay, walking around in a beautiful world would get boring after a while. A lot of people have said that Guild Wars 2 gameplay is revolutionary. I don't know that it's revolutionary as much as it just does an amazing job of hiding all the tedium of previous MMOs. You still do a lot of standard MMO stuff, but it's all streamlined. And you gain experience for everything that you do, from exploring the map, to completing quests, to crafting, to mining. This mechanic makes it feel like you're leveling instead of grinding. Along with the standard MMO quests, each character will have their own individual personal story. Each personal story event takes place in its own instance level, and it helps tell the story of your character's role in the world conflict at large. I've heard the personal stories can be rather hit and miss, but I really enjoyed my human necromancer's personal story. It really brought the world kind of to the forefront and explained the conflict of what was going on, so you actually had a little background to everything that was going on in the world that you're exploring at large. Some of the quests can be a bit tedious, and I wonder, would my character really be wasting his time doing this? But on the flip side, because they're instance and you get your own level, some of the quests feel epic and amazing at the same time. Beyond your personal story, there's also dynamic events. These are events that happen in the game world that anyone can join. They're kind of an event that's happening in the local area that you're at. All you have to do is jump in and join the quest objectives. There's no getting in groups, there's no making sure everyone's on the same phase. It's happening right before you, and you can either participate or not. If there's a lot of people around, the majority of the time these just turn into random Zerg fests. But what they lack in gameplay mechanics, they more than make up for in storytelling. In a standard MMO, you may go to an outpost and they tell you that the centaurs are constantly raiding us. Go collect 20 centaur hooves to help thin out their numbers. In Guild Wars 2, a person will come up to you and say the centaurs are always raiding us, and then the centaurs will actually come raiding. They'll come in waves and waves and waves, and this will be a dynamic event. The best part is that there's actually consequences. If you don't help stop the centaur raid, they will take over that camp and you will lose access, or everyone will lose access to that waypoint. Any merchants that are in the town, if there's a repair guy in the town, you won't have access to them because the centaurs will have taken them over, and you'll have to go find another dynamic event that's going to help take over that town back for your side. While this may be nothing more than killing mobs, from a storytelling mechanic, it works great. The world you're in feels in constant flux. It feels like there's actual conflict going on. It's not just a stagnant, okay, this is what's going on in text, and then you have to kind of go through with the story yourself. It actually feels like it's actually going on around you, that there's centaurs raiding, or there's all sorts of dynamic events, or dragons coming to attack you. The last part of PvE we're going to talk about are the dungeons. You may have heard that the dungeons in the game are rather difficult, and it can be true. They can be considered difficult, especially if you're coming from a background where being able to do a 5-button rotation and not stand in fire makes you a really good raider. It's not so much that the dungeons are difficult, it's that they want you to change your expectation, that dying is acceptable, and that standing around and pew-pewing while your tank takes all the damage is not going to happen. The dodge button is mandatory. You must cater your skills to survivability rather than just pure damage. Once you change expectations, the dungeons are a lot of fun. They're really well done. The story mode is usually complete with full cinematics as well as NPCs that help guide you through the dungeon. One thing I personally didn't like about the dungeons was the lack of a loot table. If I was going to take the time to learn a fight mechanic, or take a heavy repair build trying to beat a boss over and over and over again, I would like to be rewarded with some kind of loot. When in fact the majority of the time what's going to drop is going to be something that you could easily go to a karma vendor and pick up a better or equally impressive piece of equipment. Part of that is me having to change my own expectations and my own desires. The dungeons in Guild Wars 2 are not loot grabs, they're not progression, they're experiences unto themselves. Guild Wars 2 is not perfect. There's been a myriad of technical issues like the trading post being down and dynamic event triggers that have been dead for weeks, and we haven't been able to do those dynamic events on our servers for quite a while now. One thing in particular that hit me is when I hit 80, it was a very anticlimactic feeling. It was kind of, I literally said to myself, okay, now what? It's not that I didn't have stuff to do at 80, I did. It's just that other MMOs, you feel like you grind all the way through the levels to get to the end game, and when you finally get to the end game, you feel like the game is just now beginning. One thing that's always fun to do no matter what level you are is PvP. PvP in Guild Wars 2 comes in two forms. First, you're going to get structured PvP where you're able to essentially take a high-level character with all skills, high-level gear, and you're able to battle in kind of battleground type objectives. Structured PvP is really well done, and it's a great feeling to know that you're losing because you're losing, not because some guy spent 24 hours grinding out a certain set of gear. World v World PvP is where I think a lot of people are going to fall in love with the Guild Wars PvP experience. Here you essentially fight other servers in a 3 vs 3 battle that lasts generally 2 weeks, and you fight on these giant, massive scale maps. There's so much going on the World v World maps, and the maps are so huge that it can be overwhelming to a new player who hasn't experienced anything like this before. One of the best experiences I've had playing Guild Wars 2 is me and a bunch of guildies getting together and taking over this tiny little hamlet, this little town was captured by other players, and we went and captured it back on our end and actually opened up a supply line to our keep. It was nothing more than a tiny little blotch on this giant map, but it was something that we were able to do and we were able to take control of. World v World does a great job of making you feel like you're in an epic scale battle, but at the same time it makes you feel like you can actually make a difference in that epic scale battle, whether you're building trebuchets or catapults, or you're helping to take over keeps, or you're just simply defending supply lines from enemy invaders. This has been an exceptionally long review, and there's still so much stuff that I didn't talk about, like crafting, class mechanics, weapon battle systems. Overall, Guild Wars 2 is an exceptional experience. I don't know if it's a WoW killer or if anything will ever be a WoW killer other than WoW itself. What I can tell you conclusively, Guild Wars 2 is a second-rate MMO. It's not WoW in space, it's not WoW with capes, it's its own genuine fantasy universe. The fact that Guild Wars 2 has no subscription fee makes it easy to recommend to anyone who has a PC able to run the game. In short, Guild Wars 2 is not just another quality MMO, it's better than that. It's a AAA title that exudes quality at every turn.